The Devereux family was a fortress. Their wealth, built by Arthur Devereux, was a modern dynasty. Their daughter Genevieve was a liability no one could control. They had sent in therapists, security specialists, and high-priced companions, and all of them had left broken or been fired in spectacular fashion. The tabloids called her the Billionaire Banshee. But the Devereux made one fatal miscalculation. They never expected the one person to finally breach their walls would be a 24-year-old waitress named Melissa Quinn, armed with nothing but a stained apron, an exhausted mind, and an iron will. This isn't the story you think it is. This isn't about taming a shrew. This is a story about a coup. The Gilded Spoon wasn't a diner. It tried very hard not to be. It was a brasserie concept in a zip code where rent was higher than the average yearly salary. For Melissa Quinn, it was just work. It was the 4:00 p.m. lull, that dead air moment between the late lunching hedge fund managers and the early dining surgeons. Melissa was in the back, rolling silverware. Her feet throbbed in her sensible black shoes, a dull ache that radiated up her shins. She was calculating $147 in tips, minus the 30% she had to tip out to the bar and the busboys. It wasn't enough. It was never enough to make a dent in the mountain of medical debt her father's brief hospital stay had become. The bell at the front door chimed, not with a friendly jingle, but a reserved electronic ding. "Melissa, you've got table 4, called her manager, Brent, without looking up from his scheduling spreadsheet. Melissa sighed, pasting on what she called her affordable politeness smile. She grabbed a leather-bound menu and 2 glasses of water, her body moving on autopilot. She rounded the partition and stopped. It wasn't a table 4, it was her. Genevieve Jenner Devereux was holding court to an empty booth. She was a whirlwind of contradictions. She wore a Chanel jacket that cost more than Melissa's car, but her hair was a matted, unbrushed nest. Her eyes, a startling shade of blue, were rimmed in black from last night's makeup and dilated with something that definitely wasn't excitement for artisan sandwiches. She was vibrating, a live wire, sparking and dangerous. "Well," Jenna snapped, her voice a gravelly purr, "are you going to just stand there, or am I supposed to die of thirst?" Melissa placed the water down. "Welcome to the Gilded Spoon. Can I get you started with something else to drink?" Jenna laughed, a harsh, barking sound. Get me a bottle of the Pontet Canet." Melissa didn't blink. "I'm sorry, Mom, but our policy requires me to ask for identification for any alcoholic purchase." "Policy?" Jenna leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. "I am the daughter of Arthur Devereux. My face is policy." She pulled a wad of cash from her Balenciaga bag and threw it on the table. It was all hundreds. "There's your policy. Our restaurant's liquor license is the policy, Mom. I can get you a wonderful cranberry soda spritzer or coffee." "A spritzer?" Jenna looked at Melissa as if she'd just suggested she eat worms. "You must be new. You must be stupid. Or both." She raised her voice, scanning the nearly empty restaurant. "Brent, where is Brent? This thing is refusing me service." Brent scurried over, his face pale. "Miss Devereux, a pleasure. Always a pleasure. What seems to be the—" "She," Jenna said, jabbing a long finger at Melissa, "is a problem." "Melissa," Brent said, his voice a low, pleading hiss. "Just take her order. We'll sort it out." Melissa felt a cold, familiar stillness settle over her. It was the feeling she got when a customer tried to stiff her on a check, or when the debt collector called her father's phone. It was the feeling of being cornered. "I cannot serve her wine, Brent. She is visibly intoxicated." The word intoxicated hung in the air like a dropped plate. Jenna's entire demeanor shifted. The manic energy vanished, replaced by a freezing, aristocratic rage. "What did you say to me?" "I said," Melissa repeated, her voice level and clear, "you are visibly intoxicated. I can offer you any non-alcoholic beverage on our menu, or a plate of our truffle fries. On the house. But I cannot, by law, serve you alcohol." Jenna stared at her. No one spoke to her this way. Her security detail, a large man named Henderson, who usually sat in a black SUV outside, would have had this girl fired. Her father's lawyers would have had the restaurant shut down. But Henderson wasn't here. She'd given him the slip. And this waitress, this nobody, was looking at her. Not with fear, not with awe, but with pity? No, worse. Boredom. Jenna did the only thing she knew how to do. She escalated. She grabbed the heavy glass of water Melissa had set down and, with a flick of her wrist, dashed it. Not at Melissa, but at the empty seat across from her, soaking the plush velvet. "Oops," she sneered. Brent winced. "Miss Devereaux, please." Jenna stood up, her chair scraping violently. She grabbed the second glass of water. Melissa, seeing the motion, stepped back. Jenna didn't throw it. She brought it up to her own lips, took a sip, and then, slowly, spat the mouthful of water onto the floor at Melissa's feet. The restaurant was silent. "Clean it up," Jenna whispered. Brent was about to apologize, to grovel, to offer a lifetime supply of free meals. But Melissa spoke first. Her affordable politeness smile was gone. Her face was a mask of cold efficiency. She looked at Jenna, then at the puddle, then back at Jenna. "No." Jenna blinked. "What?" "No," Melissa said. "My job is to take orders, serve food, and clear tables. My job is not to be your prop. You're an adult. You made the mess. You can either clean it up, or you can leave. Either way, you're not getting that wine." Jenna's face was a kaleidoscope of emotions, confusion, fury, and then, bizarrely, a flicker of something like respect. It was gone in an instant. "You are fired!" Jenna shrieked, pointing at Melissa. "Brent, fire her! Fire her now, or I will buy this building and have it demolished with you inside." "Melissa!" Brent stammered, his eyes wide with terror. Just apologize to Miss Devereaux." Melissa started untying her apron. "I quit." She didn't run. She didn't cry. She dropped the apron on the floor, walked past the stunned Jenna Devereaux, and headed straight for the employee locker room. She had $147 in her pocket and no job. She was halfway through cleaning out her locker when the back door opened. It wasn't Brent. It was a man in a perfectly tailored dark suit. He was the man she'd sometimes seen waiting in the black SUV. He was tall, imposing, and his eyes missed nothing. "Mr. Henderson," she said, her voice flat. She recognized him from the one time he'd come in to pay for one of Jenna's broken lunch plates. "Ms. Quinn," he said. His voice was like gravel rolling in silk. That was impressive. "It was unemployment," Melissa said, pulling her worn sneakers from the locker. "Perhaps," Henderson said. He held up a hand, and in it was a small, black device. Or perhaps it was an interview. He pressed a button. Melissa heard her own voice, tinny and clear, coming from the device. "No, my job is not to be your prop." Henderson had been recording the entire thing. He hadn't been in the car. He'd been in the booth in the corner, nursing a black coffee, watching the whole time. "Mr. Arthur Devereaux is in his car outside," Henderson said, as if commenting on the weather. "He has a proposition for you. He would like to offer you a new job." The back of the Maybach S-Class smelled like old money and new leather. It was silent, the chaos of the city reduced to a muted, pantomimed performance through the thick, tinted glass. Melissa sat on the plush seat, her hands clasped in her lap, acutely aware of the coffee stain on her white shirt. In the opposite seat sat Arthur Devereux. He wasn't what she expected. The tabloids painted him as a ruthless corporate raider, a titan. The man before her was just tired. He was impeccably dressed in a grey suit, but his eyes were sunken, etched with a profound, bone-deep weariness. He was a king whose kingdom was in open revolt, and the rebel leader was his own daughter. "Ms. Quinn," he began, his voice a quiet baritone. He didn't look at her, but rather at the skyline passing by. "You cost me a great deal of money today." I don't understand, sir. I quit." "Oh, not the job." He waved a dismissive hand. "Brent, the manager at the Spoon, he was unaccommodating to my daughter's needs. I had to buy the restaurant." Melissa's stomach dropped. You bought it?" "I am in the process of firing him," Arthur continued, his tone flat. "It's an inconvenience. My life is a series of choreographed inconveniences, all starring Genevieve." He finally turned his gaze to her. It was heavy, like a physical weight. "You, however, you are not an inconvenience. You are an anomaly." "I just told her no, sir." "You did," Arthur said, a rare spark of energy entering his voice. "Miss Quinn, I have on my payroll 3 of the world's leading child psychologists, even though she is 23, 2 former Special Forces bodyguards, and a sober companion who charges $1,000 an hour. All of them are terrified of her. They placate her. They enable her. They lie to me, and she walks all over them. You were not terrified. You were not impressed. You didn't see Genevieve Devereux. You saw a problem, and you handled it." "I got fired," Melissa pointed out. I quit, but I was definitely getting fired." "You established a boundary," Arthur corrected, "and you held it. In my world, that is rarer than a balanced budget." The car glided to a stop, not in front of a building, but in an underground, private garage. Henderson opened the door. They were in the Devereux Tower. Arthur's office was on the top floor. It wasn't an office. It was a cathedral to capitalism. The ceiling was 2 stories high. One wall was a sheet of glass overlooking the entire city. But Melissa noticed something else. The room was sterile, lifeless. There were no family photos, just abstract art that looked angry and expensive. Arthur sat behind a desk the size of Melissa's old car. "My daughter is out of control, but more than that, she is essential." He steepled his fingers. "In 3 weeks, I am hosting the Global Unity Gala. It is the single most important event of my fiscal year. I am finalizing a merger with Pierce Analytics. It is a delicate negotiation. My new partners," he said the word with distaste, "are very family-oriented. They need to see stability. They need to see a legacy. They need to see my heiress, Genevieve, by my side, looking sober, stable and supportive." He leaned forward. "Her recent behavior has complicated things. My rival, Leland Pierce, is looking for any weakness, any sign of instability. Jenna is that weakness." "What does this have to do with me?" Melissa asked, her heart beginning to pound. "I am offering you a job, Miss Quinn. The previous companions all tried to be her friend, or her therapist, or her jailer. I want you to be what you were at the diner, her handler. Your title will be personal assistant to Miss Devereux. Your job description is singular. Get Genevieve to the Global Unity Gala, on time, sober, and in one piece. I don't care how you do it. I don't care if she hates you. I don't care if you have to chain her to a chair and do her makeup yourself. Sir, I'm a waitress. I have no training for this." Your training was perfect, Arthur said. You have no patience for her nonsense. That's your qualification. He slid a single piece of paper across the desk. It was an employment contract. Melissa looked at the salary. It was a 6-figure number. For 3 weeks of work. She stared at it. That number. It wasn't just a salary. It was an eraser. It was her father's medical debt. Gone. It was her mother's mortgage. Paid. It was a life free from the crushing daily dread of not enough. There is one more thing, Arthur said, his voice dropping. This is a non-disclosure agreement. Once you sign, you are part of the Devereaux world. You will see things. You will hear things. None of it ever leaves the walls of my home. If you fail, if she so much as shows up with lipstick on her teeth, you are fired, and the NDA's penalty clause is severe. If you succeed... He opened a drawer and pulled out a checkbook. If you succeed, there will be a bonus, a thank you, substantial enough to ensure you never have to roll silverware again. Melissa looked at the cold, tired billionaire. He was using his money to buy a solution to a problem his money had created. He wasn't asking for a miracle. He was commissioning a service. He was ordering one compliant daughter, and he expected Melissa to deliver it like a hot plate. You'll live in the penthouse, Arthur said, starting tonight. Henderson will show you to your quarters. Your old life. It's on hold for 3 weeks. Melissa thought of her tiny apartment, her angry landlord, and the mountain of bills. She thought of her father's voice on the phone, trying to sound brave, but sounding so small. She picked up the heavy, gold-plated pen. Where do I sign? The Devereaux penthouse was less a home and more a high-altitude art gallery. It was a sprawling, multi-level expanse of white marble, glass, and polished chrome. It was beautiful, but it had the soul of an operating room. Every surface was sterile, every flower arrangement looked calculated, and the silence was deafening, broken only by the distant, dispassionate hum of the air filtration system. Melissa's room was larger than her entire apartment. It had a king-sized bed, a walk-in closet, and a bathroom with a tub that looked like a spaceship. Henderson had given her a keycard and a simple instruction. Miss Genevieve is in her wing. She is expecting you. Melissa found Jenna not in her bedroom, but in a vast, white sitting room that looked like it had never been sat in. She was on a white sofa, cross-legged, wearing silk pajamas and a look of profound amusement. So, Jenna said, not bothering to look up from her phone, you're the new one. It would seem so, Melissa said, remaining by the door. What's your specialty? Are you a former Marine? A life coach? A cult deprogrammer? Jenna finally looked up, her eyes sharp. Oh, my God, you, the waitress. Jenna burst into a fit of laughter, so sudden and genuine it was startling. He hired the waitress. Oh, that is rich. Daddy's really scraping the bottom of the barrel now, isn't he? Did he offer you a lot of money? He must have. You look like you need it. He did, Melissa said evenly. Well, you might as well go get your check, Jenna said, waving her off. Because you're not going to last the night. The last one, a lovely woman named Brenda, who used to train CIA operatives, cried when I hid her lithium. You'll be much easier to break. I'm not here to be broken, Jenna. I'm here to handle me, Jenna sneered. To get me to the big, stupid party. I know the drill. So let's just get this over with. She stood up and walked to a 3-foot-tall porcelain vase, a priceless-looking Ming knockoff. He'll fire you when I break this, right? Probably, Melissa said. Jenna grinned, a feral, unhappy expression. Good. She placed her hands on it and shoved. The vase toppled, hitting the marble floor with a catastrophic, echoing smash. White and blue shards skittered across the room. Jenna crossed her arms, breathing hard, a triumphant, challenging look in her eyes. "Well, go on. Call him. Call Henderson. Freak out. Try to reason with me. Do something." Melissa looked at the mess. Then she looked at Jenna. She didn't move. She just sighed, a deep, bone-weary sigh that came from working 3 consecutive double shifts. "Do you know how long that's going to take to clean up?" Melissa asked, her voice flat. Jenna's triumphant look wavered. "What? That's not just a sweep job. That's fine particle porcelain. You'll get it in your feet for weeks if you don't get all of it. The grout alone." "It's a nightmare." Melissa shook her head and walked past Jenna, heading toward a utility closet she'd spotted earlier. "You stay there. Don't track it through the house. And for God's sake, put some shoes on." She returned with a dustpan, a brush, and a small, high-powered vacuum. She didn't yell. She didn't lecture. She just started to clean. Jenna stood in the middle of the room, looking utterly bewildered. "What are you doing? I broke that. It was worth like $50,000. "And now it's worth 0, Melissa said, sweeping up the larger pieces. "It's just trash. Move your foot." You're not mad?" Melissa paused and sat back on her heels. "Mad? Why would I be mad? It's not my vase. It's not my floor. It's just a mess. My whole life is cleaning up messes. This one's just shinier." She went back to cleaning. Jenna, for the first time in what was probably years, was speechless. She just stood there, watching the waitress clean up the $50,000 mess as if she were sweeping up spilled sugar. This became the pattern for the first week. Jenna would escalate, and Melissa would de-escalate. Jenna ordered an obscure, impossible-to-get meal from a restaurant across town at 3 a.m. Melissa, instead of fighting her, went to the kitchen and returned 20 minutes later with a perfectly made, diner-style grilled cheese sandwich and a glass of milk. "The kitchen's closed," she'd said, placing it down. "Eat, you're probably just hungry." Jenna, surprisingly, ate the whole thing. Jenna tried to sneak out. She had a whole escape route planned through the service elevators. When she got to the loading dock, Melissa was already there, leaning against a wall, holding 2 coats. "It's cold," Melissa said, "and your father has trackers on your phone, your car, and probably your fillings. You won't get 2 blocks. But if you're desperate for fresh air, we can walk around the block. Together." Jenna had screamed. She had thrown things. She had called Melissa every name in the book. Melissa just sat, read a magazine, and waited for her to run out of steam. "Are you done?" she'd ask. "Because I need to schedule your dress fitting for the gala." Melissa wasn't a handler. She was a stone wall. She was unimpressed. She was, as she had been in the diner, simply there, refusing to be a prop in Jenna's drama. The breakthrough, when it came, was not dramatic. It was quiet. It was late, maybe 2 a.m. in the second week. Melissa was in her room, unable to sleep, researching Pierce Analytics on her laptop. She heard a sound, a small, choked-off cry. She followed the sound to Jenna's wing. The sitting room was dark. The cry came from Jenna's bedroom. Melissa pushed the door open a crack. Jenna was in her bed, tangled in her sheets, and she was crying. Not the crocodile tears of a tantrum, but the gut-wrenching, terrified sobs of a child having a nightmare. She was whispering a name. "No. Please. Corinne. No. Stop. Mum." Melissa didn't know who Corinne was, but she knew pain when she saw it. She didn't rush in to coddle her. She didn't wake her up. She walked back to her own room, grabbed the heavy-down comforter from her bed, and walked back. Jenna was still thrashing. Quietly, Melissa spread the heavy comforter over Jenna's body. The weight was sudden, secure. It was an old trick she used to use on her younger brother when he had night terrors, the weighted blanket effect. Jenna's thrashing slowed, her breathing deepened, the sobs quieted into sniffles. She didn't wake up. Melissa stood there for a long moment, looking at the billionaire banshee. She just looked like a kid, a sad, scared kid. She was about to leave when her eyes landed on the nightstand. Next to a bottle of water and a phone was a small, amber-colored pill bottle. The label was from a high-end wellness pharmacy. The prescription was for Dr. Alani's Focus and Calm formula. The prescribing physician? Melissa didn't recognize the name, but she recognized the patient. The patient wasn't Genevieve Devereaux. The name on the bottle was Corinne Devereaux, and next to it, on a small silver tray, was a single, bespoke chocolate. It was the same chocolate left on her own pillow by the housekeeping staff every night. A cold dread, heavier than the comforter, settled on Melissa. She looked at the sleeping girl. She looked at the pills. "Who," she whispered to the empty room, "is Corinne?" The next morning, the penthouse was different. The air was charged. When Melissa entered the kitchen, she found she was not alone. A woman was standing by the espresso machine, dressed in an elegant, dove-grey cashmere lounge set. She was beautiful, with a smile so perfect and polished it looked like it had been surgically attached. She turned, her smile widening, but it didn't reach her eyes. "You must be Melissa," the woman said, her voice a soft, melodic purr. "I'm Corinne, Arthur's wife, Jenna's stepmother." This was the woman from the nightmare. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Devereaux," Melissa said, her mind racing. "Oh, please," Corinne laughed. "Call me Corinne. I'm just so grateful you're here. We've all been so worried about Jenna. She's just so fragile. It's a miracle you've managed to keep her in the house for this long." Corinne glided over to the pantry and pulled out a high-end blender. "I'm making Jenna her morning wellness smoothie. It's the only way we can get any nutrients into her." Melissa watched as Corinne added bananas, spinach, and a scoop of protein powder. Then she opened the amber-colored pill bottle from the nightstand. She skillfully opened 2 capsules and tapped the beige powder into the blender. "What's that?" Melissa asked, trying to sound casual. "Oh, just some vitamins," Corinne said breezily. "B-complex, magnesium. Things to help with her moods. Poor thing, she gets so anxious. This just takes the edge off." Corinne blended the mixture, poured the thick green liquid into a glass, and handed it to Melissa. "Would you be a dear and take this to her? She takes things better from staff than from me. She sees me as the enemy, I'm afraid." Melissa took the glass. It felt heavy. She walked to Jenna's wing. Jenna was awake, sitting on the sofa, scrolling through her phone. She looked pale and exhausted. "Your smoothie," Melissa said, setting it on the coffee table. Jenna looked at the green sludge, and her entire body tensed. "I'm not drinking that." "Corinne said it's for your moods," Melissa said, watching her. Jenna's head snapped up. "Corinne, she's here." Her voice was tight with panic. "Did she put something in it?" Melissa sat down on the chair opposite her. "Jenna, last night, you were having a nightmare. You were calling for her and your mother." Jenna's face shuttered. The brat was gone, replaced by a cold, haunted stranger. "You have no right. Corinne is putting something in your drink," Melissa stated. It wasn't a question. "Those vitamins?" I saw her. Jenna's eyes, wide and terrified, met hers. And for the first time, Melissa saw the truth. Jenna wasn't a banshee. She was a canary. She was a prisoner in a toxic mine, and she was screaming, but everyone just thought she was crazy. It started after my mother left, Jenna whispered, her voice barely audible. Her mother, it turned out, hadn't just left. She was in a long-term care facility in Switzerland. She had a breakdown, Jenna said, making air quotes. A very public, very messy one, right after my father met Corinne. Jenna, what is in the pills? I don't know, Jenna said, shaking her head. I just know how they make me feel. Foggy. Jittery. Like my skin is crawling. I get angry, and I can't control it. I can't think. The more I fight her, the sicker she says I am, and the more my father pulls away. Why haven't you told him? He believes her, Jenna cried, the frustration pouring out of her. She's caring. She's patient. I'm difficult. He just wants me to be quiet. He wants the problem to go away. Corinne is his solution. Melissa looked at the green smoothie. This is why you're unhandleable. It's not a tantrum, it's a defense. You're trying to keep her away. If I'm crazy, Jenna whispered, the logic dark and terrible, then nothing I do matters. I can't be trusted. I can't run the company. And if I can't run the company, who can? Melissa finished. Rowan, Jenna said with pure venom. Her son. Melissa's blood ran cold. She'd seen a Rowan in the background of a few photos. Rowan Langley, Corinne's son from her first marriage. He was charming, handsome, and had recently been given a courtesy executive position at Devereaux Industries to learn the ropes. This wasn't just a dysfunctional family. This was a hostile takeover. She's poisoning you, Melissa said, the words tasting like ash. Slowly. Not enough to kill you. Just enough to discredit you. To make you unstable. To make your father sign you away. Just like your mother. So Rowan can be the heir. Jenna nodded, tears streaming down her face. And the gala. It's not just a party. It's the final. My father is announcing the merger with Pierce Analytics. But Corinne has been telling him I'm not fit, that he needs to name a new successor, a stable one. She's pushing for Rowan. This was the impossible task. Arthur wanted Melissa to get Jenna to the gala, sober and compliant. But Corinne was counting on Jenna having a spectacular, public meltdown. She was engineering it. She's been setting me up for weeks, Jenna said, her voice hopeless. And now you're here. You're her new tool. She gives you the smoothie. You give it to me. And when I go nuclear, you'll be the one to tell my father. I tried, Mr. Devereaux, but she's just so sick. Jenna looked at Melissa, her eyes pleading. Are you going to make me drink it? Melissa looked at the smoothie. She looked at the terrified, exhausted young woman who had been systematically gaslit and drugged by her own stepmother. And Melissa Quinn, the ex-waitress, got angry. She thought of her own father, his life ruined by a different kind of corporate predation. Leland Pierce, the man Arthur Devereaux was so desperate to merge with. Melissa knew that name. Pierce Analytics was the parent company of the firm that had acquired and gutted her father's small logistics company, burying him in legal fees and triggering the stress-induced heart attack that started it all. They were the same people. The Devereaux, the Pierces, the Corinnes. They were all just different kinds of predators. No, Melissa said. I'm not going to make you drink it. She picked up the glass. She walked to the ensuite bathroom, and as Jenna watched, Melissa poured the entire $20 smoothie down the toilet. She didn't stop there. She grabbed a plastic Ziploc bag from a drawer. She walked back to Jenna's nightstand, grabbed the amber pill bottle, and emptied its contents into the bag. She took the bottle, too. "What are you doing?" Jenna asked, her voice a whisper. "I'm a waitress, Jenna," Melissa said, her voice flinty. "I know how to spot a bad order, and I know how to handle pest control." She handed Jenna her phone. "We've got 1 week until the gala. We're not going to get you there. We are going to prepare you. Call the designer. Tell him you need a new dress fitting, a sober fitting. You and I, we have work to do." The next 7 days were a blur. The penthouse, once a prison, became a war room. The first order of business was simple: flush the system. Melissa took control of the kitchen. No more wellness smoothies, no more bespoke chocolates. Melissa prepared every meal herself: simple, clean food, water, roasted chicken, vegetables. She remembered her father's recovery diet. Within 48 hours, the fog began to lift from Jenna's eyes. The color returned to her cheeks. The banshee was receding, and a sharp, calculating, and deeply angry young woman was emerging. "She's smart," Jenna admitted, pacing the floor. "The vitamins, they're not illegal. I had them tested once. It's a high-dose herbal cocktail. Obscure, but technically legal. It just reacts badly with me. It amplifies anxiety, triggers paranoia. It's the perfect deniable weapon." "Deniability is a two-way street," Melissa said, tapping her laptop. She had sent a sample of the pills via messenger to a cousin who worked in a toxicology lab, paying cash for a private analysis. "Right now, it's just vitamins. We need to prove intent." Corinne and Rowan became their primary targets. Melissa, in her invisible role as assistant, had access to the entire household. She was the one scheduling Corinne's spa days and charity lunches. She was the one Rowan asked to fetch his dry cleaning. They saw her as furniture, and furniture, they forgot, listens. Melissa used her waitress skills. Observation. She noted that Corinne made a frantic phone call to a Dr. Alani the day after the smoothies stopped. Melissa recorded the call. Corinne, in a panic, was demanding a stronger prescription, complaining that the current protocol was no longer effective. Anticipation. She knew Rowan, with his slick charm, was the type to cut corners. While fetching his jacket from his study, Melissa accidentally found a stack of casino markers from an offshore gambling site. They were for staggering amounts. Invisibility. She became the perfect, efficient assistant. "Yes, Corinne. Right away, Corinne." And all the while, she was a ghost in the machine, copying files, taking photos of documents left on desks, and planting a small audio recorder under the conference table in the study, where Corinne and Rowan held their private meetings. While Melissa gathered intel, she coached Jenna. This wasn't about etiquette. It was about armor. "They expect you to be a wreck," Melissa said, a few days before the gala. They were in Jenna's closet, which was the size of a small department store. "I don't know if I can do it, Melissa," Jenna confessed, her voice small. Walking in there. Sober. Facing all of them. Facing him. Leland Pierce. He looks at me like I'm a bug. "Good," Melissa said. "Leland Pierce. Your father. Rowan. They all think they're predators. But you're something they've never seen before. You're the heiress. They're in your house." "It doesn't feel like my house." "Then we'll make it yours," Melissa said. "You're not a victim, Jenna. You're a survivor. And you're angry. Don't hide the anger. Use it. Let it make you sharp. When they look at you, they're expecting a broken doll. You are going to show them a queen. Cold, polite, and completely in control. Your smile, it's not a greeting, it's a weapon. It's the affordable politeness smile. You give them nothing. You see everything." Melissa's cousin came through. The toxicology report was damning. The herbal cocktail was a nasty, unregulated brew of stimulants and beta blockers designed to create a rolling panic effect. High-energy anxiety followed by a crushing, depressive crash. It was, the report noted, medically inadvisable and psychologically catastrophic for long-term use. They now had the how, the pills, and the why, the inheritance. They had Rowan's motive, gambling debts, and Corinne's greed. All they needed was the when. The night before the gala, Melissa retrieved her audio recorder. She and Jenna listened, huddled in Jenna's bedroom like co-conspirators. The audio was mostly boring, until the end. Corinne's voice. "He's still waffling, Rowan. He still thinks she might pull through." Rowan's voice. "She won't. She'll be a disaster. I've spoken to a few of the caterers. A glass of champagne is already on its way to her hand, whether she wants it or not. And I accidentally let slip to Leland Pierce's assistant about her last incident at the Gilded Spoon, Corinne. Good. By the time Arthur makes his speech, he'll have no choice. He'll see her, drunk and hysterical, and he'll see you, his stable, loving son. The board will support his decision." A pause. Then Corinne's voice, cold and final. "Tomorrow night, my love, we finally fix the Jenna problem. She'll be in Switzerland with her mother by Sunday." Jenna turned off the recording. Her face was pale, but her eyes were fire. "He was going to drug me." "He's not just going to drug you," Melissa corrected. "He's going to set you up. He's pre-poisoned the well, telling everyone you're a mess. So when you show up, even if you're sober, they'll see a mess. Every stumble, every sharp comment will be proof that you're unstable." It was a perfect trap. If Jenna fell apart, she lost. If she showed up and tried to fight, they'd call her hysterical and paranoid, and she'd lose. "So what do we do?" Jenna whispered. How do I win?" Melissa looked at the evidence piled on the bed, the toxicology report, the gambling debts, the audio file. "You don't win by fighting. You don't win by being better. They've rigged the game, so we change the game." Melissa pulled out her laptop. "Your father's speech is the main event. That's the finish line. He's trying to impress Leland Pierce, a man whose company, Pierce Analytics, is built on data, on finding weakness, on due diligence." A slow, dangerous smile spread across Melissa's face. It was not her waitress smile. "They're all expecting a drama," Melissa said. "Let's give them a data dump instead." The Global Unity Gala was held in the grand ballroom of the city's Museum of Art. The room was a sea of black ties, diamonds, and surgical-grade ambition. The air was thick with the scent of lilies and the sound of false laughter. Melissa was invisible, just as she planned. She wasn't a guest. She was staff. She wore a simple black dress and a headset that connected her to Henderson and the rest of the Devereaux security team. "Just keeping an eye on Jenna," she'd told him, and he'd accepted it. Corinne and Rowan were at the grand entrance, playing the part of the gracious hosts. Corinne was magnificent in a blood-red gown, her arm linked through Arthur's. Rowan, slick and handsome in a custom tux, was already working the room, shaking hands with board members. "They look so confident," Jenna whispered. Jenna was in the green room, a private lounge reserved for the family. She was a vision. She hadn't chosen a bright, look-at-me color. At Melissa's suggestion, she had chosen a gown of deep, midnight blue velvet. It was stark, elegant, and severe. Her hair was pulled back in a sleek, powerful chignon. Her makeup was minimal. She looked, as Melissa had put it, like a CEO, not an ornament. "Of course they're confident," Melissa said, adjusting the single strand of pearls on Jenna's neck, her real mother's pearls. They think they've already won. They think you're the Jenner problem. They have no idea. They're the Jenner problem. Showtime, Melissa said. She tapped her headset. Mr. Henderson, Miss Devereux is ready to make her entrance. When Jenner walked into that ballroom, the air didn't just shift. It stopped. The murmuring died. People turned. They were expecting the billionaire banshee. They were expecting a train wreck. Instead, they saw her. Sober. Poised. Her eyes were not wild. They were alarmingly clear. She didn't stumble. She glided. She walked with a purpose that was more terrifying than any tantrum. She walked straight past the receiving line, past a fumbling Rowan who tried to offer her a flute of champagne. "No thank you, Rowan," she said, her voice carrying in the sudden quiet. "I'm not drinking tonight." Rowan's smile flickered. She walked straight to the two most powerful men in the room. Her father, Arthur Devereux, and his target, Leland Pierce. "Father," she said, kissing his cheek. He was visibly stunned. "Jenner, you look wonderful. I feel wonderful," she said. She then turned to the other man. Leland Pierce was a shark in a tuxedo. He had cold, assessing eyes. He looked at Jenner, and his expression was one of polite disdain. He was the man who had ruined Melissa's family. He was the man Rowan had warned about Jenner. "Mr. Pierce," Jenner said, extending her hand. "Genevieve Devereux. It's a pleasure to finally meet the man my father admires so much." Pierce took her hand, surprised. "The pleasure is mine, Miss Devereux. I'd heard." "Oh, I know what you've heard," Jenner said, her smile never wavering. It was the smile Melissa had taught her. "The stories are dreadful, and I'm afraid, mostly true. It's amazing, the fog you live in when you're not well. I'm just so grateful to be clear again." Corinne had drifted over, her own smile painted on, her eyes full of panic. "Jenner, darling, don't bore Mr. Pierce." "I'm not boring him, Corinne," Jenner said, turning that cold, polite smile on her stepmother. "In fact, I was just about to thank you. If it hadn't been for your special wellness smoothies, I don't think I ever would have found the motivation to get healthy." Corinne's face went white. She knew. "If you'll excuse us," Jenner said, taking her father's arm. "I believe you have a speech to prepare." She led her father away, leaving a shell-shocked Corinne and a rapidly sweating Rowan in her wake. Melissa watched from the shadows. Phase 1 was complete. The unstable narrative was fractured. Jenner had reset the board. Melissa melted back into the service corridors. She had her own role to play. She found the head caterer. "Hi, Mr. Henderson needs a private word with you. A security issue with the champagne." She led the confused man to a back office, where Henderson, whom Melissa had tipped off about a potential threat, was waiting. The caterer was now occupied. Melissa then found the young waiter Rowan had paid to hand Jenner a drink. He was nervous. Melissa cornered him by the kitchen doors. "He paid you, didn't he?" she whispered. The boy's eyes went wide. I don't. Rowan Langley. He paid you to make sure Miss Devereux got a drink. One with something extra in it. It was just champagne." "It was a set-up," Melissa said. "He was going to get you fired. He was going to say you served a distraught woman alcohol. You'd be the scapegoat." Give me the tray," Melissa said. "Go to the men's room. Be sick for 10 minutes. Forget this happened. You work for us now." The terrified waiter handed her the tray and fled. Melissa, now holding a tray of champagne, blended back into the party. She was a waitress again, and she was invisible. She saw Rowan, now desperate, heading for the bar himself. "He's going to get the drink himself," she muttered into her headset, on a private channel to Henderson. Main bar, southeast corner. She watched as Henderson, a ghost in a suit, intercepted Rowan. A quiet, firm hand on the arm. A few whispered words. Rowan, his face ashen, was escorted, for a private word, to the same back office as the caterer. The trap was set. The pieces were in place. "Arthur," Jenna said, as she and her father stood just off stage. "Before you go up there, there's something you need to see. Something about your merger." "Jenna, not now. This is business." "This is business, Father," Jenna said. She handed him a slim silver tablet. "It's a due diligence report. I compiled it myself. I think you should show it to Mr. Pierce." Arthur, confused, looked at the tablet. On the screen was a simple, elegant presentation. The title slide read, "Internal Liabilities, a Risk Assessment of Devereaux Industries and Pierce Analytics." "Jenna, what is this?" "It's just some data, Father," she said. "You and Mr. Pierce, you love data, don't you?" The announcer's voice boomed. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Arthur Devereaux." Arthur looked at his daughter, her face calm and serious. He looked at the tablet, and he walked on stage. Arthur Devereaux stood at the podium, the lights of the ballroom reflecting off his silver hair. The room was silent, holding a collective breath for the speech that would announce the biggest merger of the decade. He looked down at the tablet Jenna had given him, his brow furrowed. He looked out at the crowd. He saw Leland Pierce at the front table, his face expectant. He saw his wife, Corinne, smiling, though her eyes were darting anxiously toward the back of the room, looking for her son. And he saw his daughter, Jenna, standing in the wings, watching him. She wasn't scared. She wasn't a wreck. She was waiting. He tapped the screen. "Good evening," Arthur began, his voice amplified, filling the hall. "We are here tonight to celebrate unity, to celebrate the future. When I began this merger negotiation with Leland Pierce, we talked about synergy, about legacy." He looked directly at Pierce. "Leland, you and I are men who built our empires by managing risk, by identifying threats, by due diligence." Pierce nodded, a small, self-satisfied smile on his face. "I thought," Arthur continued, "that the greatest risk to my company's future was external. Market forces. Competition." He paused. "I was wrong. The greatest risks are often internal, the ones you trust, the ones you let inside your own home." Corinne's smile froze. "My due diligence," Arthur said, his voice dropping, "has been lax. I've been so focused on the future, I failed to see the rot in the present. I've been misled by those I trusted most." He looked down at the tablet. "My daughter, who many of you have whispered about, has been the victim of a different kind of corporate sabotage, a hostile, internal takeover." A gasp rippled through the room. Leland Pierce sat bolt upright. This was not the speech. "It's a fascinating story," Arthur said, his voice now like ice. "A story of greed, of poison, of fraud." He looked at Corinne. "A story about a wife who has been systematically drugging her stepdaughter for months to have her declared mentally incompetent." Corinne stood up. "Arthur, what are you saying? You're confused." "Am I?" Arthur said. He tapped the tablet again. The massive screen behind him, which was supposed to show the new Devereaux Pierce logo, flickered to life. It showed a toxicology report. "This is a report on the vitamins you've been giving my daughter." Psychologically catastrophic, I believe was the term. Corinne let out a small, strangled sound. "And it's a story," Arthur continued, his voice rising, "about a son with over $2 million in offshore gambling debts." The screen changed. It now showed copies of Rowan Langley's casino markers. "A son," Arthur pressed on, "who has been siphoning money from my charitable foundations to cover his losses, and who, just tonight, attempted to bribe a caterer to drug my daughter to complete the illusion of her instability." The screen changed one last time. It wasn't a document. It was a live feed. From the back office, it showed Rowan, his face in his hands, with Mr. Henderson and 2 uniformed police officers standing behind him. Corinne Devereux collapsed back into her chair. Arthur Devereux looked at Leland Pierce. "My apologies, Leland. It seems my house was not in order. I cannot, in good conscience, merge my legacy with yours until I have cleaned it." He looked back at the crowd. "There will be no merger tonight. Instead, I have a different announcement." He turned and looked at Jenna. "I'm announcing the creation of a new internal audit division with a $100 million fund. Its sole purpose will be to re-examine all charitable, medical, and private family expenditures for the last 5 years, and it will be led by its creator, my daughter, Genevieve Devereux." He held out his hand. Jenna walked from the wings, her face composed, and stood beside him. The room was in stunned, absolute silence. Checkmate. The impossible act wasn't handling Jenna. It was saving her. It was giving her the weapons she needed to save herself. A week later, the penthouse was quiet again. But it was a different quiet. It wasn't sterile. It was calm. Corinne was gone. The divorce was being handled by lawyers, and it was going to be swift, silent, and brutal. Rowan was facing charges. Arthur, in a rare act of mercy, had ensured Jenna's mother was moved from the facility in Switzerland to a real hospital nearby. Melissa was in her room, packing her small bag. Her original 3-week contract was up. Her bank account now contained a number that still made her feel dizzy. Her father's debts were gone. Her life was her own again. There was a knock on the door. It was Jenna. She wasn't wearing pajamas. She was wearing a sharp, navy blue pantsuit. "You're not really leaving," Jenna said. It wasn't a question. "My job's done," Melissa said, zipping her bag. "You're not a problem anymore." "No," Jenna agreed. "I'm a solution. We are." She held up the tablet. "My father. He's a mess. He's been living in a fog for years. This audit, it's real. He's giving me real power." "That's great, Jenna. You'll be amazing." Jenna took the bag from Melissa's hand. "I can't do it alone. I can read a balance sheet, but you read people. I saw you at the gala. You were a ghost. You were a general. You handled Henderson, the caterers, and the security feeds like you were managing table sections." "It's the same skill set," Melissa said with a small shrug. "I know," Jenna said. "My father offered you a bonus check." "It's on the desk," Melissa said. "I didn't cash it." "I know that too." Jenna shook her head. "I'm not my father, Melissa. I'm not going to offer you a blank check or name your price. I'm offering you a job, a real one. The contract as companion is over. I'm offering you the position of Chief of Staff for the new Devereux Audit Division." "Jenna, I'm a waitress. I don't have an MBA." "I don't want an MBA," Jenna said, her voice filled with a new, hard-won authority. "I want you. I want the woman who saw a $50,000 vase and just got a dustpan. I want the woman who tasted poison and started an investigation. I want the person who didn't handle me, but who listened to me. I don't need a handler, Melissa. I need a partner." Melissa looked at the heiress. She was no longer a broken girl. She was a leader. And Melissa was no longer a waitress. She was a strategist. She smiled. "Well," Melissa said, "in that case, we're going to need a bigger office, and I'm going to need a much better salary." And so, the waitress and the heiress rewrote the rules. The billionaire's daughter wasn't handled, she was unleashed. But as they say, when you clean one house, you just find bigger monsters in the shadows. The Devereux empire was safe from Corinne and Rowan, but the due diligence on Leland Pierce had just begun, and Melissa's past was on a collision course with Jenna's future. What did you think of Melissa's strategy? What would you have done with Corinne? If you love stories about hidden dangers, delicious revenge, and an underdog turning the tables, then I have a favor to ask. Please hit that like button. It tells the algorithm that you want more stories like this. Subscribe to the channel and ring that bell, so you never miss a new chapter. And most importantly, share this video with a friend who loves a good, dramatic twist. Let me know in the comments what story you want to hear next, or